So what will the new MPs mean for Saskatchewan? For more analysis, I'm joined by two political scientists in our province. Jim Farney is from the U of R, and in Saskatoon from the U of S, Loleen Berdahl. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start with initial thoughts. Some big wins, some big losses across the country. Loleen?
Across the country, I think the big losses on the Conservative side would obviously be Lisa Raitt, and on the Liberal side would be Ralph Goodale here in Saskatchewan.
Jim, is there anything that stood out to you when it came to big wins and losses across the country?
I mean, I'd agree with Loleen on those two, and maybe add in seeing a Green win on the East Coast in Fredericton was interesting last night, as well as the head of the People's Party going down to defeat.
Ralph Goodale's loss could have some big implications for Regina Wascana. Constituents have gone from having a long-time voice in Ottawa, 26 years, who was in cabinet and would have been part of the government, to now having a new politician as part of the opposition. Jim, is there a way for Saskatchewan people to have a voice with this government?
I've spent a lot of time trying to figure that out this afternoon, and there is no clear line. There's no other Liberal MP in the province, obviously. The traditional answer would have been to appoint a senator, and there are a couple of Liberal senators and an open Senate seat. But Mr. Trudeau 4 years ago made senators no longer sit as part of the Liberal caucus, so I'm not sure that option's open. And once you get past that, it's unclear to me how we get a seat at the cabinet table or a really senior voice in government at all.
Now, we were also watching Saskatchewan's Northern riding very carefully. The three main parties had contenders with big, recognizable names. Liberal candidate Tammy Cook-Searson as chief of the Lac La Ronge Indian Band, Conservative candidate Gary Berdahl as the mayor of Meadow Lake, and then Georgina Jolibois as the NDP incumbent. It went Conservative. Loleen, what do you think happened there?
Well, if you look at the actual vote counts, we see that if you combine the Liberal and Conservative, Liberal and NDP votes together, that they are actually larger than the Conservative candidate. So I think we had an issue of vote splitting. That's always been a very competitive riding, and always had these strong three-way splits. And this time it got caught up in that blue wave.
We did see something new last night. The leaders giving their speeches essentially all at the same time. Bit of a nightmare for those of us trying to follow along. Jim, do you think this is some foreshadowing of what's to come?
It could be foreshadowing, it could be sloppy staff work, but I think it was the content of the speeches more than anything that was discordant. Mr. Scheer's was quite kind of campaign style. You know, we had a decent night, not what we'd hoped for. I thought Mr. Trudeau sounded as if he'd won a majority and was getting ready to lead a majority government, which was odd. And then Mr. Singh, although he'd lost seats, was doing a victory dance and very clear about these are the three things that I'll need the Liberals essentially to provide for me to work with them. I'm having trouble seeing how that will play out inside the House of Commons.
Before we wrap this up, I'm curious, final thoughts, overarching themes from both of you. Loleen, I'll start with you.
Well, we obviously have a very divided House of Commons and a very partisan country right now. I think the challenge for the Liberal minority government will be to make sure that it finds ways to balance national unity, and I think the challenge for the other party leaders will be to decide the extent to which they want to be working with the minority government and the extent to which they want to be trying to bring Canada together or be a bit more divisive.
Jim, what are your thoughts on how this all went and what's to come?
I'd agree with Loleen that there's this national unity or regionalism issue, and making it harder to manage is a lot of impetus to deal with some big policy problems. You know, pipelines, the carbon tax, pharmacare, those are regional issues, but they're also really wicked policy problems, and to do both at the same time as a minority government is very difficult.
Well, thank you both for being here today. We both appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you.